Hello and welcome to this video lecture which provides an overview of how to do dimensioning in AutoCAD. For this demonstration, AutoCAD 2020 is used, uh, but the topics discussed here are relevant and also equally applicable for other recent versions of AutoCAD. So this video tutorial can be used as a guideline for other versions as well. It is well known that engineering or technical drawings are a medium of communication, and in that dimensions play a vital role. In fact, dimensions are essential in certain engineering drawings, such as the part drawings or detailed drawings in machine drawing, or plan views or top views in case of civil engineering building plans. While orthographic projections or views convey a notion about the shape of the object, that is what it looks like, dimensions provide an accurate idea about size of the object. For example, let's have a look at the object shown on screen. This view is sufficient to get an idea about its shape and its visual features. But from this view, we do not get any idea or hint about its size. Hence, dimensions are necessary. When properly dimensioned, it looks like this. Now, there is no ambiguity regarding its size, provided all the dimensions are provided keeping in mind certain conventions. In fact, for consistency, dimensions in engineering drawings are generally governed through certain rules and regulations. The focus in this video is to learn how to do dimensioning in AutoCAD. So let's move forward to that. However, before one begins to dimension a AutoCAD drawing, it is essential to create a dimension layer. And from the point of view of effective organization of drawings, it is always a good practice to provide all the dimensions in this particular layer, that is the dimension layer. As you can see in this particular drawing sheet, which is named dimension.dwg, where .dwg is the extension of this file, AutoCAD file. These are all the layers that have been already created. You can move to the layer properties manager and see that this dimension layer has got certain properties associated with it, which are the line color, line type, and line weight. Regarding how to create such layers, I would refer you to the video on layers, which has already been shared with you. Please go through that video lecture to learn more about layers. In AutoCAD, dimension options are provided under the annotation feature. Now here is the AutoCAD interface. On this interface, dimension related commands or buttons can be found in two different places. They are the same commands, but they can be accessed from two different locations. First, under Home tab, there is the annotation panel. And here, if we zoom in, this is the annotation panel. And here, if you look at this group of three buttons, these are related to dimension. Second, here is the Annotate tab, and under this tab, there is the Dimension panel. Now, as you can clearly see here, more than 3 buttons are present, and hence this is much more elaborate than the previous one. You can take a look at the zoomed in view of this Dimension panel here. However, it must be said that the basic dimension commands can be accessed from both these locations without any difference. That means you can either use the Annotate tab, under which there is the Dimension panel, or you can use the Home tab and the Annotation panel, under which there are a group of 3 dimensioning related buttons. But you must also keep in mind that there is a third option here in the command prompt. That is, you can write down the appropriate command in the command prompt and do the appropriate dimensioning of a particular feature. In this dimension panel, under the Annotate tab, the most important buttons are the dimension button and the small button here with a downward arrow. If I click on this downward arrow, you will see that there are lots of different options for dimensioning. Now these dimensioning options are also available in the Home tab and the Annotation panel, where you can see the same dimension command and the button with this downward arrow appears, and if I click on that downward arrow, you will obtain all the different dimensioning options that we got from the Annotate tab as well. So the dimensioning can be done from any of these two places. However, before we start the dimensioning, we need to take care of dimension style as well. Now, dimension style is a collection of dimension settings that control the appearance of dimensions. That is, how the dimensions look like when placed on the drawing. One can control every aspect of dimension, that is, the dimension line, the extension lines, the dimension text, its format and precision. All these things can be controlled using the dimension style. There are 2 dimension styles preloaded in AutoCAD, and those can be viewed here. So you can see the annotative and the ISO 25 dimension style. Presently, we will not consider the annotative dimensioning style and concentrate only on the ISO 25 dimension style. However, one can create a new dimension style or modify an existing dimension style such as the ISO 25-1 using Dimension Style Manager. Now, where can we find this Dimension Style Manager? You just need to click here, and right below the 2 dimension styles, you find the Manage Dimension Styles button, and if you click that, you will obtain the Dimension Style Manager. Now, this can also be obtained from the Home tab and the Annotation panel. Click here and you can see this is the Dimension Style button, and under that you have the Annotative and ISO 25 dimension styles. We have already selected ISO 25, and below that you can see that the Manage Dimension Style button appears as well. So if you click that, the same Dimension Style Manager window opens. Alternatively, you can write dim style, that is DIM STYLE, and press enter to bring up the same Dimension Style Manager window. In this Dimension Style Manager window, we have the option of creating a new dimension style or even modifying a new dimension style. Right now, the ISO 25 dimension style is selected, and if you want to modify that, we'll just click on this button. This opens up a modify dimension style window like this, and you can see that there are multiple tabs at the top of this window, such as lines, symbols and arrows, text, fit, primary units, alternate units, tolerances, etc. Now, all of these options are not relevant to us at this moment for this present class. So we'll look at some of the options that we can change from this window. Also, do notice that there is a preview window right here. So any modifications you make on these options, those changes will be reflected in this preview window. So first of all, let us look at the lines tab. As you can see, it has dimension lines, as well as extension lines. So how does the dimension line look is governed by its color, its line type, and line weight. So we can change these options to by layer because we have created a dimension layer, a separate dimension layer. We want that the color, line type, and line weight of that particular dimension should be controlled through that layer only. So you can see that I have changed all of this to by layer. Now we can suppress sides of dimension lines as well. So if we click here, you can see that one side, that is the left side of this dimension line, has disappeared. Again, for example, here the bottom side has disappeared. Now there may be some particular situation where you might want to do that. The same can be done for the other side of the dimension line. Now moving on to extension lines, again the appearance of this extension line is controlled through the color, the line type, and the line weight. And again we want that it should be controlled by the particular layer that we have created. And to do that, I have changed all of them to by layer. Again here there is an option for suppressing the extension line if required. In general, for the basic dimensioning purposes, suppression of these dimension lines or the extension lines are not required. However, the options exist, and if you click here, you can see that the left side extension line has disappeared. You can also delete or remove the second extension line that is on the right hand side here. For example, on the top side here, that can also be removed by clicking on this button. However, as I said, these may not be required, or most definitely is not required for the basic dimensioning. There are other options regarding the extension line here as well. The first one deals with by how much the extension line extends beyond the dimension line. That means we are talking about this small bit here, that is this small bit here that is beyond the dimension line, this part. So if I now change that to 0, you will see that there is no extension beyond the dimension line. And if I change it to 2, you will see that there is an extension that amounts to 2. Now we can change back to 1.25 and keep it as it is, because these are certain finer options which do not need to be changed for the basic dimension. The second one, that is offset from origin, deals with how much gap there is between the extension line, the end of the extension line, and the point on the object from which that extension line is extended. As you can see, there is a small gap here. If that parameter is changed to 0, now you can see that there is no gap. And if I change it to 2, the gap is substantial. Again, we change it back to 0.625, which was the original value, to keep it as it is. Now we move on to the second tab, which is symbols and arrows. It controls the appearance of the arrowhead as well as the center marks and the dimension break. Now these options, that is arc length symbol, radius, jog dimensions, linear jog dimensions, as well as the center marks and the dimension breaks, they do not need to be changed for the basic dimension. Only thing that I will point out here is that the appearance of the arrowhead, it could be all of these things, but we'll choose to keep it as closed filled for the first one and the second one as well. For leader lines as well, the single arrowhead that would be there would be closed and filled. The arrow size is an important option which controls the size of the arrowhead. Obviously, if I make it 5, that is double the original option, that is 2.5, you will see these arrowheads have become bigger. We go back to the previous one of 2.5 and their sizes has reduced again. Now, if you have a dimension line which is quite long, that is, say you are trying to dimension a part of 100 mm length, then an arrow size of 2.5 might become too small. So you may not need to increase it to 5 or 7.5. Keep one thing in mind, that you should change the arrowhead size in multiples of 2.5 or 3. Next, we go to the text tab. Here, the appearance of the dimension text is controlled. First of all, we can obviously change the font. Right now, this is some default txt.shx font. I can change it to Times New Roman. You can see the preview in this window. One thing to note here is that this height factor for the font should not be changed, because it has precedence over all the other places where this height can be changed. So it is better to keep it as 0 and control the font size or the text height from other options. We close this and come back to this modify dimension style window. As you can see now, the text appearance of the text has changed because of the change in font. Finally, we go to primary units. Here, the format for the dimension text, this is the number, can be set. We keep it as decimal. The precision can be chosen as well from this drop down menu. We choose to keep it at 2 places after the decimal point, and the appearance of the decimal point itself can be changed. Right now it is comma, but we do not use comma as the decimal. We usually use a point, so we choose period as the decimal separator. Keep all the other things as same, and that brings us to the end of selection of the basic dimensioning options. One more thing that I have skipped is in the text tab, the text alignment is there. Here there are 3 different options: horizontal, aligned with dimension line, and ISO standard. And if we change in between these 3 different options, you will see in the preview window how they look like. Any one of these options can be chosen. So now we press OK and come back to this window, and finally we close it. So that is how Dimension Style Manager can be used to change the dimensioning options or the appearance of the dimensions. Now that we have set our dimension style, we can move on to dimensioning actual parts or engineering objects. For this, I will move on to this dimension example file where I have already created this example of a properly dimensioned object. So you can see that there are various types of dimensions such as linear, angular, radius, diameter dimensioning options presented here. So how do we provide these sort of dimensions? Let me just first of all give the pan command and move over to this side where a duplicate or replica of the object seen here is observed. Now our goal is to dimension this object following certain basic commands which can be brought up from this drop down list. Before going to this different dimension options or commands, please check that the OSNAP option is clicked, that is, it is selected. So here is the object snap option. Now it is off. So if I click it once again, you can see that OSNAP is now turned on. Now we go to the linear dimension command and simply click on the endpoints of the object, and you can see that a dimension has been provided. So let me repeat it once again. So we go to this drop down list, choose linear, which provides only horizontal or vertical dimensions. So what is to be done here? Click the first point, so that is one click. Click the second point, the second click, and then take this dimension outside of the engineering object as per the convention, and click once again, that is the third click, to place this dimension. So go here, select linear, then choose the endpoints of the object that you are trying to dimension carefully, and then place this dimension outside of the object. Now we can also select this linear option and then hit enter. As soon as you do that, you will see that the appearance of the cursor has changed to a square box. Now if you go to this line and select the line, you will see the same dimension appear. So it can be done in two different ways. The second option is select linear, hit enter, then select the object that you want to dimension. But sometimes when the distance is such that there is no object in between, then this second option may not be useful one. I'll just remove some of these dimensions which are duplicate ones. Also remember that in an engineering object, you should not repeat dimensions. Duplicacy of dimensions is to be avoided. If we go to this linear option once again and try to dimension this line, you will see that it only gives us the horizontal dimension or the vertical dimension. That is not what I want. I want the length of this slanted line. For that, I can go to the aligned dimension option, click here, carefully select the endpoint, and now I can get the length of the slanted line. So that is how aligned dimension can be provided. For this one as well, I can, after selecting the aligned option, hit enter and select the line for which I want the dimension, like that. I'll remove the last one, and now we move on to the angular option. So this provides angles in between two lines. So I can select this line and this line, and there is the angle between the two lines. Depending on the quadrant you are in, this angle will be placed in different locations. So if I am here, this will be 32 degrees, and this is the obtuse angle 148 degrees. So for placement, you just need to click. Angular option can also be used to provide the included angle for an arc, circular arc. So I have selected the angular option. Now I select this arc, and you can see that the included angle here is 90 degrees. Remove the final one. And now we go back to the list and select the arc length option. This provides the length of the arc between the two extreme points of the arc. So starting from here, going up to this point. So if you select the arc, you can see between the extension lines, the length of the arc is provided. Here, note the arc length symbol that precedes the dimension value. Again, I will remove the last one and go for the next option, which is radius. This is quite straightforward. You select the radius option and any circular object or circular arc that needs to be selected to get the radius of that. So like that, I can provide the radius of the circle. This also works for this radius option, also works for circular arcs. Select this arc and you can see that it has a radius of 7.5. Finally, we move on to the diameter option. Again, as the name suggests, that it can provide the diameter of circles or circular arcs. So this diameter is 40. It is also possible to bring out the different dimension commands by writing the appropriate command in the command prompt. For example, if we want to provide linear dimensions, then the command for that is dim linear. So if I write DIMLINEAR, that is dim linear, and press enter, then I'll be able to put linear dimensions like this. Similarly, dim dia corresponds to the diameter dimension. So if we go to the diameter now, or if we come to this circle, its diameter is 6 mm. Before we end this video on dimensioning, let us discuss some more important points. And for this, I'll move over to the dimension.dwg file, and here I'll draw some lines of a given length. So this is a horizontal line followed by vertical line, and that is followed by another horizontal. Also, I'll put one circle over here which we will dimension later. This circle has a radius of 25. Now if we look to dimension these objects, first of all I need to move over to dimension tab. And now I can go to linear, select the endpoints and put the dimension here. Now as soon as I do that, you can see that the arrowheads at the end of this dimension line, they are very small. So is the text. So how do we modify these things? It can be best done by going to the dimension properties and then modifying them. For that, I'll select the dimension, right click on it, and towards the bottom of this list there is the properties option. So if I click that, the dimension properties opens up in this new window. Here you will see a considerably long list of different properties associated with the dimension which has been selected. So under this comes general, miscellaneous, lines and arrows, and so on. So obviously the first thing that I need to modify is the arrow size. This arrow size I'll make 5. Not only that, moving below this list, I'll find the text options, and here the text height is given as 2.5. I'll change it to 5 again and hit enter. So if I press escape now and close this, you will see that these arrowheads as well as the dimension text has become just a little bit bigger and more discernible. Another thing that is important here is to have a look at the text override option. If I put some value in this text override option, then that actually overrides the original dimension. You can see it is written as 50. However, the length of the line does not change. It remains 100, but the dimension shows up as 50. So if some mistake is made in writing the dimension text, it can be overridden and the correct value can be put through this option. Now moving on to this circle. Now dimensioning this circle is quite easy by putting the radius or the diameter option. However, circles can be dimensioned through the linear option as well. For that, I'll select the linear command, that is linear dimension command, and I will put the dimension in between the two quadrant points. And you can see that the dimension has been provided here. But it also suffers from the same problem that these arrowheads and the dimension text are very small. So I will just repeat the operations that I did for the linear dimension. I'll go to properties, find out arrow size, make it bigger, and then I'll move on to the text height. I'll change it to 5 and I'll hit enter. So now you can see the dimension value. Now there is an obvious mistake here, because we know that dimension of the circle, that is if I am providing the diameter dimension, then it should be preceded with the symbol phi. So that is missing. So here is the utility of the text override option. I'll go to properties again and move here to the text override option. And now what I need to do is simply put the symbol phi here. But how to put phi? We do not have any key on the keyboard which says phi. So here I'll have to put down %C. That is the code for writing phi in AutoCAD. And this would be followed by the numerical dimension 50. We hit enter. Close the properties window. You can say that it is written as phi 50. So that is how linear dimension can also be used along with the text override option and the code for the symbol phi to give dimension to a circle. This is where we end this present video.